The night sky over the airbase was unusually silent, almost deceptive. Floodlights glared across the runway, illuminating the massive silhouettes of U.S. Air Force B-52 Stratofortress bombers, steel giants resting under the weight of history. Suddenly, without warning, the alarm pierced the air. A chilling siren echoed through the base, cutting through the silence like a blade. Soldiers sprinted across the tarmac, their boots hammering against the concrete, while red emergency beacons began to flash. "High alert! Repeat, high alert!" the loudspeakers roared. Within seconds, the dormant giants awoke. Engines coughed, then roared alive, spitting fire and thunder as ground crews scrambled into position. The deep rumble of 8 jet engines shook the earth, rattling windows miles away. Civilians in nearby towns paused, staring into the night sky as the unmistakable thunder of warplanes rolled overhead. Something was happening. Something big. For decades, the B-52 had been a symbol of U.S. power projection, a bomber capable of carrying nuclear or conventional weapons anywhere on the planet. But tonight was different. These weren't scheduled training runs, nor routine patrols. This was an emergency takeoff, an immediate response to a threat unfolding in real time. Reports were still unconfirmed, but whispers spread quickly. Radar intercepts, unusual troop movements, hostile communications. Intelligence had flagged a situation in the Middle East, something too dangerous to ignore. The world was about to change, and it began here, on this runway, as the bombers thundered into the night sky. The first minutes, a world on edge. As the first bomber lifted off, flames trailing from its engines, the ground crew shielded their faces from the heat. The commander's voice crackled through secure channels. "Eagle formation, airborne. Repeat, Eagle formation is airborne." Those words were enough to send ripples through global military networks. NATO allies scrambled for updates, while adversaries tuned their surveillance systems, monitoring every move. Social media exploded with shaky videos of the bombers roaring skyward, captions screaming, "Something is happening!" Inside the cockpit, the atmosphere was tense. The crew of 6 exchanged sharp, minimal words, eyes focused, hands steady. They had trained for countless scenarios, but the uncertainty tonight was heavier than ever. Somewhere out there, an invisible clock was ticking. In Washington, the Situation Room lit up with urgency. Generals, advisors, and intelligence officers leaned over glowing maps, lines of code, and intercepted signals. The president was briefed in real time. "We cannot afford hesitation," one general muttered. Yet no one dared to say the word that lingered in everyone's mind. War. Rising tensions. By the second minute, global news networks were breaking the story. "High alert in the Middle East," headlines flashed. Markets trembled, oil prices spiked, and millions of people turned their eyes toward the skies. Was this the beginning of a full-scale conflict, or a show of force meant to prevent one? Meanwhile, in the dark waters of the Persian Gulf, U.S. Navy carriers shifted into combat readiness. Submarines adjusted their courses, and satellite constellations refocused on potential flashpoints. Every nation in the region braced, wondering if they would be the stage for what was coming next. The third minute was the most haunting. As the bombers reached higher altitude, the horizon seemed to tremble. Their silhouettes crossed the moonlight, symbols of both protection and destruction. For the men on board, the mission orders remained sealed until clearance was given mid-air. Would they be flying to deter, to intercept, or to strike? No one knew. What was clear was this. The U.S. had just signaled to the entire world that something extraordinary was unfolding. The B-52s, relics of the Cold War yet still unmatched in endurance and firepower, were not in the sky by accident. Somewhere in the shadows, an event had triggered this chain reaction. And now, the question wasn't if something would happen, but when. The world held its breath as the bombers vanished into the night sky, leaving only thunder behind. The answer to what awaited them, whether negotiation, confrontation, or devastation, remained shrouded in silence. For now, the night sky stretched endlessly, a canvas of black pierced by the roaring engines of the B-52 Stratofortress bombers. Their silhouettes were now just shadows above the clouds, but below, entire nations trembled at the sight of their ascent. Inside the lead bomber, the dim red glow of the cockpit illuminated the tense faces of the crew. Each man's voice was clipped, precise, carried by headsets that crackled with static and coded instructions. Altitude steady, fuel levels holding. Radar sweep, clean for now. The commander, Colonel James Harlow, sat rigid, eyes fixed on the instruments in front of him. His hand hovered near the sealed black envelope strapped to the console. A set of mission orders that could only be opened once Washington gave the green light. No one dared mention it aloud, but the weight of that envelope pressed heavier than gravity itself. Global shockwaves. Across the Atlantic, European allies scrambled fighter jets into the skies. Bases in Germany, the UK, and Italy activated alert protocols not seen since the height of the Cold War. French and German intelligence networks buzzed with intercepted chatter, their analysts working overtime to separate truth from deliberate noise. In Moscow, the Kremlin's war room pulsed with urgency. Generals leaned over maps of the Middle East, their expressions grim. "The Americans have launched B-52s," one officer muttered, voice low, almost reverent. "This is no exercise." China, too, shifted its gaze. Satellites adjusted orbit, cyber units probed for clues, and naval assets began maneuvering in the South China Sea. The whole world had become a chessboard overnight, with every move watched by billions of eyes. The crew's burden back inside Eagle 1. Silence hung heavy, except for the constant drone of the engines. The youngest of the crew, Lieutenant Parker, glanced out the small round window, the glow of the moon painting the wings in silver. "Feels like history, doesn't it?" he whispered into the comm. "History," replied the navigator dryly, "usually means something's about to go wrong." They chuckled faintly, but the tension remained unbroken. Their training kept their movements precise, their focus razor sharp. Yet beneath the surface, every heartbeat carried the same silent question. What are we flying into? At exactly 02:17 Zulu time, a coded transmission cut across the radio. The room hushed instantly as the commander leaned forward, his hands tightening on the console. "This is Eagle Command. Authorization Bravo confirmed. Repeat, Authorization Bravo confirmed." Colonel Harlow's eyes flickered to the black envelope. Slowly, deliberately, he tore it open. The crew watched in silence as he scanned the orders. His jaw clenched. "Gentlemen," he said, voice firm but low, "we have our mission." He paused, locking eyes with each member of his crew. "This is not a drill." Rising stakes. As the words settled over the cockpit, the B-52s began adjusting formation, their wings slicing through the night with deadly precision. Their course shifted southeast, angling directly toward the Persian Gulf. On the ground, U.S. carrier groups prepared to launch fighter escorts. Tankers positioned themselves mid-air to provide refueling. Drones spread across the skies, forming an invisible web of surveillance. News agencies across the globe flashed urgent headlines. Unconfirmed U.S. bomber deployment toward Middle East. Panic in oil markets as tensions explode. World leaders in emergency consultations. Millions clung to their screens, their social feeds, their radios, searching for answers. But no one outside the chain of command knew what was truly happening. The unseen enemy. Somewhere beyond the horizon, in the deserts of the Middle East, radar installations pinged. Hostile units shifted position. Communications networks buzzed with encrypted traffic. An adversary, unnamed, faceless but real, was moving pieces into place. And the bombers, engines roaring like ancient thunder, were heading straight into the storm. The world had entered the fourth minute of crisis. The clock was still ticking, and the next decision, strike, stand down, or something in between, would determine not just the fate of a mission, but the course of history itself. The engines of the B-52s thundered across the heavens, a fleet of steel titans carving their path through the night. Below, nations held their breath. Above, the crews carried a weight few could imagine. Inside Eagle 1, Colonel James Harlow unfolded the mission orders. His eyes scanned the words with precision, his face tightening as the details sank in. The sheet was brief, written in sterile language that betrayed the gravity of its meaning. Immediate patrol of designated airspace over the Persian Gulf. Show of force against unidentified hostile troop mobilizations. Authorization to intercept if directly engaged. Strike clearance to follow only upon presidential confirmation. It wasn't a call to strike, not yet. But it was far from routine. The orders made one thing clear. Someone, somewhere, was preparing for conflict, and the United States was now positioning its hammer in the sky. Harlow folded the document carefully and spoke into the comm, his voice steady. Mission parameters confirmed. Maintain current heading. Eyes sharp. We're flying into shadows tonight. The crew acknowledged with crisp affirmatives, but unease lingered. Everyone knew shadows had a way of hiding teeth. Global reverberations. In Washington, the Situation Room glowed under harsh fluorescent lights. Advisors whispered urgently, phones rang without pause, and intelligence feeds scrolled faster than human eyes could follow. Troop buildup confirmed along coastal positions, an analyst reported. Satellite imagery shows armor columns moving under cover of night. The president leaned forward, his expression unreadable. Options? Eagle formation is in the air, a general replied. They're the signal. If deterrence fails, we'll know soon enough. The room fell into silence. Every man and woman there understood what failure meant. Inside the bomber, Lieutenant Parker adjusted his headset, breaking the heavy quiet inside the cockpit. Colonel, if we're only authorized to patrol, why scramble us like this? The whole world saw us lift off. Harlow's eyes flickered toward him, calm but sharp. Because sometimes, Lieutenant, the threat isn't what we see. It's what they think we're willing to do. The words hung in the air like steel. The encounter. By the 5th minute of flight, radar screens lit up with activity. Small, fast-moving blips danced on the edges of the display. Fighters approaching fast. Unknown aircraft bearing 095, closing at Mach 1.5, the radar operator called out. Visual confirmation? Harlow demanded. Through the narrow windows, streaks of light appeared in the distance. Jets, sleek, agile, racing toward the formation. They're not ours, the co-pilot confirmed grimly. The crew braced, fingers hovering over controls, systems armed but awaiting the command. Across the secure channel, another bomber captain's voice came through, taut with tension. Eagle 2 to Eagle 1, we've got company. The standoff moments later, the enemy fighters closed in, their silhouettes glinting in the moonlight. They flew dangerously close, weaving around the bombers in a deadly dance. Warning lights flickered on the control panels. Targeting systems locked, though no missile had yet been fired. It was a silent message, clear as thunder. Turn back, or be tested. Colonel Harlow's jaw tightened. His orders were clear. Do not engage unless attacked. But each second felt like a coin flip between restraint and catastrophe. The bombers held formation, steady and unyielding, engines roaring like giants refusing to bow. The enemy jets lingered, probing, taunting, waiting. The 6th minute of crisis had begun. The bombers flew on, their course unbroken, and in the shadows of the sky, the question burned hotter than ever. Would the next sound be thunder or fire?